Mike Jeffries and the Charlotte Independents winless in their last 4 games, but they return to the comfortable confines of the Sportsplex at Matthews to take on Joe Cole and the Tampa Bay Rowdies in a massive Eastern Conference clash that could potentially see the Charlotte Independents jump as high as second place in the table with 3 points tonight. Tyler Terrence, along with none other than 4-time NCAA participant Morgan Conklin. And Morgan, for Tampa Bay, they've had so many different changes, whether it be personnel or coaching or what have you in their camp. But one thing that has remained consistent is their ability to play out of the back, and that's why our player to watch for Tampa Bay is none other than the birthday boy, Hunter Gorsky.
Hunter Gorsky has been such a huge part of this team when you look over the course of the whole season. The only player for the Rowdies to play every single minute of the 2018 season. He also, on top of that, leads the team in passes and is doing so with a 79% accuracy. So he's on the ball and he's adding to the attack and he's adding to his team. It's not just passes that aren't going anywhere. He has a purpose with all of them. And when you look at the way that Tampa Bay is playing right now with the 3-back system, he's going to be matched up against some dynamic attackers in Charlotte. But he's a player that on the other side isn't afraid to get forward, as he scored the game-winning goal in the 1-0 win that the Rowdies had in the last meeting against Charlotte going back to last year.
Well, when talking about Cordell Cato for the Charlotte Independents, dynamic might be an understatement. The most consistent striker for Mike Jeffries this season by a mile. 7 goals on the year. The former San Jose Earthquake has been outstanding in Charlotte.
And Cordell Cato doesn't just make his team better by finishing in the way that he's getting on the score sheet, but he brings a different element to their attack. He's a player that is able to go at players 1v1, but also get him behind. Like in this example against Richmond, he gets his run in behind, or he can also get him behind when he's on the ball. So he's a player that is able to attack from a wide position, yet also come centrally, and he just brings such a different element, and also a different element to the attack of Jorge Herrera when you look at how the two of them match up.
Well, for the Charlotte Independents, this is obviously a tough matchup at home, but the next 5 games for Charlotte are against some of the best teams in the Eastern Conference. This is a great chance for Mike Jeffries' team to really test their mettle and win the type of games that you need to win in the playoffs in order to be a championship caliber team. For Tampa Bay, they're looking to just get above the cut line and into that playoff position, but their form as of late, just 1 win in their last 8 league games, 9 in all competitions if you include their U.S. Open Cup loss to the Jacksonville Armada. I mean, they just need to find some sort of recipe for success.
But if you look at Tampa Bay, they're dealing with such an interesting year right now, losing 2 key players of their team who are both on the back line with Neal Collins. Granted, is still with the team, but he's not in the 11. The Marcel Schaefer, who just retired, they're coming off their most recent loss, which was their first loss at home in 18 games, going back to April of 2017. So they're a team that right now is just looking to find their identity.
Well, for Neal Collins and the Tampa Bay Rowdies, it's go time. It's the midway point in the season, and this side is looking for 3 points. It's a team that was finishing in the top 3 in the Eastern Conference a year ago. For the Charlotte Independents, they're winless in their last 4, trying to jump into second place in the Eastern Conference. It's all coming your way next.
My card.
Misplace your debit card? Turn it off with your app.
Excuse me, my card,
This one's gotta be yours, right?
Yes.
And turn it on when you find it.
Well, we are in a weather delay here at the Sportsplex at Matthews with some ominous clouds and weather on the horizon. You can actually hear the rain here at the moment, and with some lightning in the area, fans were asked to find some shelter, and we're going to ask you to sit tight as kickoff has been pushed back. We'll keep you updated as long as possible. But for the moment, Charlotte and Tampa Bay postponed for at least a half an hour. Hurts us too, folks. We'll be back when we know more. Welcome back to the Sportsplex at Matthews. We apologize for the weather delay, but Mother Nature is going to be Mother Nature sometimes, and we appreciate you hanging around as we are almost set for kickoff between the Charlotte Independents and Tampa Bay Rowdies. Tyler Terrence, along with none other than the fantastic, the fabulous, and four-time NCAA participant and former Virginia Tech Hokie, Morgan Conklin. And Morgan, we'll just recap what these two teams have looked like as of late for the Tampa Bay Rowdies. There's been a ton of change in camp, just in terms of personnel, in terms of coaching. Neal Collins obviously taking over as of late. Marcel Schaefer departing, retiring, and taking a sporting directing job with Wolfsburg, his former club. And for Tampa Bay, their struggles on the road continue. They just have one win in their last 8 games. For Charlotte, they're winless in their last 4. They're unbeaten in their last 3. And they're looking for a big 3 points. And if Louisville can't get 3 points out of tonight's game, Charlotte could see themselves in second place tonight.
And when you look at Charlotte, you said it both ways in terms of winless, but then undefeated. But if you look at them, 8 straight games with a goal, so they're still producing, which is important when you look at the schedule that's coming up after this game. So they need to take advantage at home against a Tampa Bay team that's still trying to find their identity, going through a ton of changes this season.
Well, the Tampa Bay Rowdies, as we mentioned, just continue to struggle on the road. Just 2 wins away from Al Lang on the season, and they dropped their most recent game against Penn FC at home at Al Lang, their first loss at home since April of 2017. And we'll take a look at the starting lineups now, which are brought to you by Novan Health. And starting with Neal Collins, the starting 11 is going to look a little bit different, Morgan. We have Hunter Gorsky, Tam Akandawiri, and Ivan Magales holding it down in the back in this 3-back system, which they've been trying out as of late. Dominic Oduro getting his first start in a Tampa Bay uniform.
And if you just look at some of these players, you have Groff getting his 4th start on the season, Lakawecki 4th start on the season, Makandawiri and Magales their 5th starts on the season. So this is a team that's still trying to find players. They still have a ton of experience. You look across, obviously, Joe Cole, Nanchoff. But then you have players that are still making their impact known. We already mentioned Gorsky earlier in the Open before the weather delay, but he's a player who's played every minute for this team. So this is a time when they really have to rely on that veteran leadership, on that experience, because it's a team going through so many changes, personnel, and lineups. And
for the Charlotte Independents and Mike Jeffries, this is how the Jacks are going to line up tonight. Jorge Herrera, the wily veteran, up top. Alex Martinez right in behind. Martinez hasn't scored a goal since July 29th of 2017. Cordell Cato and Jan Ekra to his left and right, respectively. But this back line has changed from time to time. Lee Jung-soo, veteran with the South Korean national team, but obviously trying his hand here in the United Soccer League. What do we see from Mike Jeffries' 11?
Well, my eyes right now are on Javon Watson, a player who was just named to the Team of the Week, and he's someone that we've seen him in the central midfield, center back right now, and he's a player that Mike Jeffries is really high on, really praised the way that he plays. Right now they feel that they need him in the center back position. They love to have him in the spine of the team. But right now, I also love the way you see the youth in Cato and then the age and experience in Herrera and just the way that they play. I asked Jeffries the difference in having Herrera and Cato compared to an Enzo Martinez and Herrera. So I love seeing those matchups because it brings out different parts of each player's game.
Well, the Charlotte Independents are coming off of 3 straight 1-1 draws at Richmond, home against Charleston, and then at Atlanta United 2 with that bizarre own goal that hit off the crossbar and then the back of the head of Andrew Dykstra. And when talking to Mike Jeffries about that, he said it was an unbelievable strike. Didn't necessarily make any excuses, just gave credit where credit was due. And then Moape obviously had the great equalizer against Charleston. Whether or not that was a shot or a cross, we'll never know. But what we do know is that it found the back of the net. And then Charlotte most recently coming away with a 1-1 draw at Richmond. But that was probably the most frustrated that Mike Jeffries has been this season. In our conversation with him earlier in the week, he just said that they felt like they left points on the table, and even though it's on the road and they got a point, and Morgan, I'm sure you know better than most, especially playing at such a high level in the college world, getting a point on the road and then getting 3 points at home is really what it comes down to at the end of the day.
You have to take advantage of the games that you have on at home, and then when you get on the road, it's all about stealing points where you can. And granted, yes, they got 1 looking at that Richmond game, but it's one, if you know you could have gotten more, it makes that 1 point, you just feel like it's a letdown because you know you could have gotten more, and it's so hard to play on the road, which is why stealing points when you can is important. But if you know you played better, you're always going to want those 3 over 1.
Well, Tampa Bay is going to look to steal 3 points here at the Sportsplex at Matthews. Charlotte trying to get back to winning ways, and we're officially underway from the Sportsplex at Matthews. Tyler Terrence along with Morgan Conklin. Glad to have you with us and glad that you were able to stick around. This game was delayed about a half an hour for some weather, but the weather apparently has passed and will hopefully stay away from the greater Charlotte area as the Independents in their all blue kits moving from right to left. Tampa Bay in the green and yellow striped kits moving from left to right, and already Joel Johnson and company on the move. Charlotte's backline has taken some different forms just in terms of the personnel over the course of the season. Here's Donnie Smith. He's battled some injuries throughout the course of 2018. Spent a lot of time with Charlotte and Mike Jeffries in 2017, and they anticipated that he was going to be their guy for 2018, but because of all these injuries, he's sort of been unlucky in terms of seeing time. But Sam Vines, the 18-year-old and loan from the Colorado Rapids, has done an extremely good job of filling in and obviously learning from some great players like Kai Foster, like Jorge Herrera, and it's just a great mix of young and veteran players on this Mike Jeffries side. And Alex Martinez taken down from behind.
You can see the line that Tampa Bay is bringing in terms of defensively. They're sitting in as a team. They know that once Charlotte gets the ball to a certain point, that's when they need to step. But it's one of those things when Alex Martinez just got on the ball, way too many touches. If he can get that off his feet and move the ball, he's able to keep possession. He doesn't get caught in a tackle.
Akira Fitzgerald in between the sticks for Neal Collins tonight, getting his 6th start of the season. See there the first half home goals this season, United Soccer League. 7 teams on 7. North Carolina FC, surprising that they have so many goals in the first half and getting off to a good start, yet they still remain below the cutoff line for the postseason in the Eastern Conference. They've had some tough luck, especially, remember a game against the Bethlehem Steel in which Charlotte Independence rivals ended up surrendering 2 goals in the last 10 minutes. Santimar with the assist on both of those goals.
Tyler, that's one thing that's so almost puzzling about Charlotte is when you look at their stats and look at their record and look at where they are, there's such positives, but then there's also some things that don't really add up. I mean, offensively, they're 3rd in the league right now with 23 goals for. 17 goals in their last 9 games. That's outrageous. But then they've also been shut out 4 times on the year. So they're doing a lot and still have those down times, which happens. But I feel like Charlotte, this is a team that when you look stat-wise has such an upside, yet sometimes they can't find those results or maybe can't find the 3 points when they know they should have that.
Well, it's been a roller coaster of sorts, and that was certainly the case, and then some in 2017. They had 4 wins in a row against FC Cincinnati TFC 2, as Alex Martinez finding this one and is able to win a corner for the Jacks, the first one for either side tonight. Those wins also including TFC 2, Richmond, and Ottawa, but then directly following that, it was a 4-2 drubbing against New York Red Bulls 2, and then draws against Atlanta, Charleston, and Richmond. So Alex Martinez gets set for the corner along with Kai Foster, and corner kicks brought to you by Chick-fil-A. Foster's corner not his best by any stretch of the imagination, but it will remain with Charlotte. Cato. On Groff giving him some issues, but work from Cato just to win possession for Charlotte.
The work defensively put in by Groff is impressive. Granted, it is early in the game. I don't know if we'll see that over the course of the full 90, but that's what Tampa Bay needs to do in order to shut down a dynamic player like Cato, is to have those players track and work defensively, to not allow Cato space. And especially with Tampa Bay playing in a free-back system, it forces attacking players who are used to really just attack. It forces them to do the work on the defensive end.
This one cut out by Donnie Smith. Kevon George, 28-year-old from Trinidad and Tobago, helping switch the point of attack. The Spaniard Joel Johnson, who is well known around the Charlotte camp for his antics and maybe getting a few more yellow cards than some of his comrades, and he had a nice laugh about it with Mike Jeffries. He actually had 1 yellow card removed from his resume because he went 5 games without a yellow card, and Mike Jeffries said, I'll let you guys be the determination of whether or not he'll go another 5 games without getting a yellow. I certainly wouldn't put my money on it.
He did say that he's calmed down a bit, and I might have scared Mike a little bit, because looking at the thing, I didn't see on the notes that he had 1 taken back. At first, it just said 5 yellows. So when I asked him if his right back was going to be playing the game, because I saw that he had 5, he said that was news to him. So luckily, we got that straightened out. But he's a huge part of this attack, and when you see the way he works with Cato, that's dangerous for defenders to have to, first off, go against an attacking outside back, and then also a 1v1 player who's so dynamic like Cato, and then you put both of them together with the overlaps and the way that they work together. That's a tough job.
Well, Kai Fosser had his ball picked out of the air, and now Tampa Bay looking to spark a counter the other way. Joel Johnson, speaking of defensive work, racing back and winning the ball. Tampa Bay claiming that there was a foul involved. The head referee, Marcos de Oliveira, not agreeing with the Tampa side, as Jan Ekra finding Alex Martinez out on the wing. It's a good job from Tampa just getting back defensively in transition. Johnson penetrating pass in for Ekra, skip all the way across for Alex Martinez. And Martinez stood up extremely well by Sebastian Guenzati and company. Here's Ekra, taking the space given to him. Herrera, back for the Frenchman. Ekra into the area, but the delivery well off the mark. Although good link-up play with the veteran from Colombia.
That's a strong build-up from Charlotte, and Donnie Smith stepping in defensively and not allowing that clearance to get by him allowed them to then have another attack, and just the work between Ekra and then Herrera. Herrera had 2 players coming at him when that entry ball was played, and normally that's a role where you want Herrera, whoever's in that role, to turn and look to go to goal, but his first touch back out to Ekra, who kept his run going, caught that Tampa Bay defense. They weren't expecting that, because usually you have a player turn there, so that's just a really good awareness from Herrera and knowing what's on.
Donnie Smith poking it away from Sebastian Guenzati. Kondawiri dumps it in behind, and good communication from Andrew Dykstra. And when talking with Mike Jeffries, he said that Dykstra is our #1 moving forward. And while they do have a reigning Golden Glove winner in Brandon Miller, Dykstra seems to be their guy. Smith, good header to find Fosser. Good work in the middle of the park. Joe Cole won the ball, albeit with both studs flashed up into the air, and Marcos de Oliveira blowing it dead. And Joe Cole not exactly happy. Cato skipping away from his mark. Herrera going back for the speedy Cato. And Marcos de Oliveira claiming that it was offside, or rather a foul. Challenge from behind by Groff. Got a little bit too much of Kevon George. George, a very solid addition for this Mike Jeffries side. Actually played his college ball at the University of Central Florida. He has more than 20 caps with the Trinidad and Tobago national team. He was actually starting in that World Cup qualifier against the United States, which saw the U.S. officially not qualifying for the World Cup, which is well underway and just continues to dazzle us day in and day out. I think it's fair to say this is easily one of the most entertaining and dramatic World Cups in recent memory, Morgan.
I know it was big news yesterday, and I'm hoping it's still big news. That goal from Messi, the touch/touches, it was almost like one
with the
touch.
same leg, going full speed.
I don't know how that's possible. Like, even in slow motion, just thinking of that or trying to do it, it's unbelievable.
Well, there's a lot of hype around the Marcos Rojo goal, which was spectacular, and obviously the dramatics behind it. But, I mean, when you look at it from a technical standpoint, the Messi goal is otherworldly.
It's one of those things where you think you know soccer and you know the game and you know what's possible. And then seeing that,
Yep.
I'm like, I really don't know soccer if that can happen.
Smith, good entry pass into Herrera. Great first touch along for Alex Martinez. He squares it across, and Jan Ecker was that close to breaking the deadlock. Best build-up we've seen thus far from the Jacks, and it almost resulted in an Ecker goal.
That's one of the first creations that Alex Martinez has gotten off his foot and connected. It's a great 1-2 with Herrera, who checks in. That ball is so on, back at an angle, more towards the top of the 18 because he has Ecker running through. Good job defensively from Tampa Bay to be able to account for and just get bodies in front. But the way the movement, it was quick, the ball was moving quick, the passes were there, and I think that's one thing that's set that apart from the other chances we've seen from Martinez, is he didn't have time to think about what to do with it. It was so quick and he had to get it off his foot. There was no time for extra touches.
Including the first touch from Jorge Herrera, which set up Alex Martinez. Certainly don't want to leave that out, as Joel Johnson taking the space in the middle of the field, but his pass picked off, working extremely hard to win it back, and does so. Now here's Cordell Cato. Johnson overlapping, the ball sent across and cut out. It looked like Makandawiri. Javon Watson sees his pass taken away. Dykstra well a ways from home. Groff applying the pressure. Strong work from Joel Johnson. Unable to find Cordell Cato, but his athletic ability on display every time he touches the field. He's the only player to start and play in all 15 of Charlotte's games this season, now make it 16. Good ball sent in. Groff trying to bring it down, but it's broken up. Comes back out. Lee Jung-soo with a good defensive header. And Tampa Bay starting to apply their first real pressure of the opening 13 minutes. Anshoff whips it in. And Charlotte can slow it down as we're about 13 and a half minutes into this one from the Sportsplex at Matthews. 0-0 between Charlotte and Tampa Bay. Tyler Terrens along with Morgan Conklin. A couple of half chances for Charlotte. Not much to write home about for Tampa Bay. And Charlotte with a win tonight and a little bit of help from Louisville could see themselves in second place in the Eastern Conference. Tampa Bay looking to bounce back after a shocking loss at home to Penn FC. Their first loss at home at Al Lang since April of 2017. It almost becomes a running joke in the United Soccer League at how good Tampa Bay are at home, and then how much it seems to change on the road as Kai Fosser trying to find Jorge Herrera. And it'll go all the way back for Fitzgerald, but not before there was a handball.
You're seeing the way that Tampa Bay is sitting in, and I mentioned it earlier, but now they're getting a little bit deeper. Charlotte's trying to find those open lanes passing, and it makes the game just slower because they're trying to look to find the open lanes. Herrera's normally that target, whether it's in the air like they just looked or on the ground. But one of the good things about that is if they can find the entry passes, Charlotte's really quick off the ball, so they can build up, get numbers forward. But it's difficult, and that just shows why the game is slower, because they're trying to find those lanes, and Tampa Bay isn't making that easy.
Well, there certainly seems to be space out wide. Joel Johnson has been occupying it. Nice little layoff for Cordell Cato. Easy on the eye for the crowd here at the Sportsplex at Matthews. Here's Fosser. Spraying it out wide for Donnie Smith, getting in an advanced position from that outside back roll. Now Charlotte really making camp in Tampa Bay's defensive third. This three-back system for Neal Collins in Tampa Bay. It's relatively new, but with all the personnel change and coaching changes, maybe not a bad idea to try to find maybe some sort of recipe for success with just one win their last 9 games, which includes the U.S. Open Cup. Also the Jacksonville Armada.
And Tyler, it's not a bad idea if you have players that are willing to put the work in defensively, and that's what we're seeing today. Yes, there's a back three, but if you have all 10 field players, maybe even you have Groff higher, but if you have Groff behind the ball, all 11 players behind the ball, it doesn't matter if you have a 3-back system because you have so many players that have to be broken down.
Well, it requires an immense amount of work from your wingbacks, or Guenzati and Leo Fernandez. And I assume when you were playing an outside back at Virginia Tech, it was in a 4-back system, so it wasn't as much running, but still, I mean, when you look at the work that Joel Johnson and Donnie Smith put in, you know, it just goes to show the amount of ground that those positions can cover out wide, as this one's going to go against Charlotte.
Well, and it's demanding too, because it's different if you have a 4-back system and you're expecting outside backs to get forward because everybody loves to attack. But if you're asking your attacking players to do a lot of work defensively, naturally they don't want to drop as deep because they want to be involved on the attacking end. So when you have those players that are actually helping defend and are actually getting behind the ball and disrupting play, it just shows the work ethic of your players and the willingness to do so to help the team.
That ball sent ahead from Tampa Bay was not a bad idea. Joel Johnson sees it out of play. Some other action around United Soccer League. Last time we checked, FC Cincinnati had a 3-1 lead over Toronto FC2. It was 1-1, and then basically in 5 minutes, FC Cincinnati erupted. Goals from Welshman and Manu Ledesma. I think it's pretty fair to say that Ledesma will be in the best 11 for the USL come the end of the season. Louisville and the always defensive-minded Pittsburgh Riverhounds were tied 0-0 at the half.
I think that's the first time I've heard you call them the Riverhounds, not the River Rhinos. That's my favorite
That's supposed
nickname.
to say within the realm of the broadcasters, not to release that.
I love it though.
I'm gonna coin it someday.
It's the same characteristics that you saw with
It's
Rochester.
just in Pittsburgh. It's not in Western New York.
Exactly.
I mean, it's just weird to see Raymond Lee, Cristiano Francois, and all those guys running around in a Pittsburgh uniform and then seeing Bob Lilly on the touchline. It's hard for me not to call them the River Rhinos.
Well, and it's been half a season, but it's still weird.
They just continue to stifle anyone and everyone. Only 7 goals allowed this season. Joseph Greenspan, Hugh Roberts just doing an incredible job along that back line. Good work from Charlotte. Joel Johnson. That's Cordell Cato. Tampa Bay extremely compact. Having a little bit of space out wide. That's where Charlotte are trying to operate. Johnson driving towards the byline. That's great 1v1 defending out wide. And Tampa Bay are claiming that the last touch came off of the Spaniard, Joel Johnson, but it'll be another corner for Charlotte, which are brought to you as always by our friends over at Chick-fil-A.
Chick-fil-A corner cake for your independence. And taken by number 8, Kai Bosser.
Fosser, it'll be an outswinger. It's a great ball in. Asking a lot of the Tampa Bay defense. McConaughey got there first. Cato. Watson. Working on Guenzati. Ekra tried the return pass. George. More patient play from Charlotte. Very indicative of any Mike Jeffries side. Alex Martinez. Ekra. Great pass from Martinez. Jan Ekra tried to send it across. It's Alex Martinez. He has his shot blocked in front. Still with Charlotte. Fernandez gets upended. A tizzy of action right in front of Fitzgerald. No shot getting to him just yet. And Charlotte will reset.
That is such a dangerous ball played in for Martinez. First off, he's on the run, so he's penetrating at the back line. Then the little slip pass in. Ekra was in, but when he takes that touch on his left foot away from goal, his angle is completely closed down, and he doesn't have anything. But you have to credit Charlotte the patience that they have right now. It's never fun when you're that close to goal to have to pull the ball out and restart, but they're doing a really good job. They're trying to find the angles, and I love the way that Martinez, when he got that first ball, he dribbles at the back line to force Tampa Bay to move and to step to him, which opens up the angle like it did for Ekra.
Well, Jan Ekra was more of a platoon player last year and has really moved in to a more dynamic role for Mike Jeffries, especially with the absence of Enzo Martinez. They've certainly added some pieces, and when we talked to Jeffries, even at the beginning of the season, it's not about replacing Enzo, it's about finding different ways to score, because Enzo was just so dynamic.
But another thing that we touched on in our call was just asking how the loss of Enzo or other players stepping up, bringing in other players, finds different aspects of players' games, especially looking at Herrera. The partnership that Jorge Herrera and Enzo Martinez had, they were almost on the same wavelength. They were always together, always knew where the other was going to be before they even got there. And then now if you look at Herrera and Cato, it's a different type of partnership. And it allows, if you think about it, it allows Herrera to play a different role with his age that suits him. He doesn't have to do as much running. He's not running into spaces because he has Cato to do that. He's more finding gaps where he can slip in and set other players up. So he's still obviously a huge part of this attack. You just look at his production on the season, especially combined with Cato, but it just allows him to play a different style of game. And like you said, Ekra brings a different element to him. I think we all agree that we want to see a little bit more from Alex Martinez. How can he get back on the score sheet? How can he keep creating? But it allows other players to step up and have different roles.
Well, we mentioned Martinez without a goal since July 29th of 2017. He does have 2 assists on the season, but it's not like he was throwing in bags of goals like his brother last year. He only had 3 goals and 4 assists in 2017, but you're right, Morgan. I think including Alex would say from himself that he expects to find the score sheet a little bit more often in terms of the goal production. That goal on July 29th came against the Bethlehem Steel, who they're going to take on this Saturday.
And a lot of it does have to do with, personally, you know, he wants more than that, but also he's playing, he floats a bit, but more on the left side. You have so much production from that right side. Herrera's bringing some. Maybe let's see a little bit more from the other side, really just to balance out the attack.
This is the first real spell of possession we've seen from Tampa Bay tonight. But it's rather meaningless possession, Morgan. And we've seen that from both sides. And while Charlotte's may have been a little bit further up the field, there's a lot of side to side, not a whole lot of vertical action. This ball will be intercepted by Donnie Smith. It's intended for Hunter Gorsky, celebrating his birthday today on June 27th. Very happy birthday to Mr. Gorsky, who's helping anchor that Tampa Bay Rowdies back line, which has kept the Charlotte Independents off the scoreboard for the first 24 minutes. It's a big day for Hunter Gorsky. He sports the number 27. He was born on June 27th, and he turned 27.
That's like a double golden birthday. Isn't
Triple.
That
it is a gold. Yeah,
triple.
it's his golden birthday.
That's a really, wow.
If he doesn't score today,
It might never happen. No, it's happened before. I didn't mean that. But wow, that's really special.
and I would have to imagine he sports the number 27 because of his birthday. As Jan Ekra trying to find this along the byline, but it was a good defensive move from Tampa Bay. As Akira Fitzgerald comes away with it.
The best players step onto the world stage, so get ready to cheer and head over to Jack's house and enjoy all the soccer drama.
You could hear Mike Jeffries organizing his team defensively, and then once they got in the correct position, he yells out perfect, and then you hear on the other side from Tampa Bay, come on, let's try to do something. But because of Charlotte's defensive shape, it's not a whole lot of space to be had for Tampa Bay. Joel Johnson able to keep it in play. As far as Fernandez. Broken up by Watson. Good play out of the back to find Cordell Cato. Tampa Bay slightly exposed here. Long ball sent ahead for Herrera. Alex Martinez overlapping. Herrera. Quick little stutter step. Martinez. Looking for a positive option. Forced to go negative in the form of Kai Fosser.
Joel Johnson is so late to get into the attack. If he would have gotten there earlier, he could have been on a full sprint with the ball into the corner, running onto it. Because you saw when it dropped in the middle, players are looking to that right side. He's not there.
Well, Tampa Bay are off and running. Good defensive play from Javon Watson. Watson, of course, with the equalizing goal against the United States men's national team in the 2017 Gold Cup. Some more USL flavor in that game as Corey Burke and Kevon Lambert came on as substitutes against the U.S. men's national team for the Reggae Boys. More than 70 caps for his country. And between him and Lee Jung-soo, a plethora of experience on the international level. Lee Jung-soo has had some goals on the biggest stage for South Korea at the World Cup. And South Korea, of course, coming away with that dramatic 2-0 victory against Germany that knocked out the reigning champions. It's utterly bizarre how that just continues to happen year after year. 4 out of the last 5 champions the following World Cup have been ousted in the group stage. Is there any rhyme or reason to that?
I don't get that because you know they all know that it's happened before. So it's one of those things every team wants to avoid. So then I don't know. I just find that so strange because it's not like they're unaware of
it's not like they're
the
good
struggles.
teams.
Right. Yeah, I don't get that.
Ball out of the reach of Cordell Cato. Groff. Here's Watson out of the back. Well, Morgan, I don't think there's really much avoiding it. This has been a rather lackluster game so far, as we're well into the 30th minute.
The pace is just so slow. And I hate to say it, but when you think of a midweek matchup, teams that maybe aren't playing at their best, this is kind of what you expect. But I would hope to see something a little bit different, especially when you look at Charlotte at where they are in the standings and how they can jump with the win. I didn't expect to see this game so slow. Granted, it's difficult to break Tampa Bay down the way that they're dropping, the way that they're getting numbers to the ball when it gets to a certain point. And Tampa Bay has really had a lot of chances in transition. They've started to get their offense going. But for Charlotte, I expected to see a little bit more.
Well, for Tampa Bay, they do have the upcoming weekend off. Charlotte, it's 3 games in a week, so it's obviously a little bit heavy of a workload. But for Tampa Bay, they had 4 full days off as Donnie Smith is put under some pressure. And especially given your recent form, I would have to imagine the message from Neal Collins is, you know, to heck with 1 point. Let's go ahead and get 3. Let's lick our wounds on the weekend and see if we can, you know, start to muster something up in the dog days of June and July.
And that could easily be the message at halftime. Maybe it's let's get through the first 45. We're on the road. We haven't had the best record on the road. Let's play tight defense. At halftime, that's the message. Or in the last 20 minutes, we're throwing it everything that we have at Charlotte. That could easily be a message for a team that is looking to find their identity, has had a ton of changes, struggles on the road, finds some inconsistency in terms of play depending on where they are, coming off a really tough loss in multiple ways. So that could easily be the message is we're going to play tight defense, get numbers behind the ball, and then take our chances when we can at the end.
Here's Johnson. Good ball across, broken up. Foster was trying to take it on the first time. Joe Cole able to get there first, and it'll fall for Donnie Smith now. Now Ekra looking to provide an option for his outside back. Now it's Alex Martinez. Joel Johnson. Dropped off for Foster. Former FC Basel man spraying it over for Cordell Cato. But again, it's not the final pass, it's the pass leading up to the final pass has been missing for Mike Jeffrey's side.
And especially if it's slow, that final pass can't get there, especially when you're looking laterally, trying to play it wide. If the ball to set up the final pass isn't quick, then the ball wide isn't going to get there because a defender has time to slide over.
Ekra. Good ball over the top for Cato. Able to bring it down. And it was a good idea from the Trinidad and Tobago native, but defender well up to his tricks. Joel Johnson, more bullish work to win it back. Martinez. Great ball through. Herrera goes for goal, but off balance and falling away from the frame. Easy work for Akira Fitzgerald.
That's the second time we've seen such a great slip ball in, but then players off balance or going away from goal trying to force a shot, and I get it. 33 minutes in, it's not the best game. Trying to find anything, but that's a moment when Herrera, a player who's very aware of his surroundings, is very aware of what's on and what's not. At that moment, a shot isn't there. First off, he has a defender closing, another behind. And then personally, he's off balance, so he's not going to make a clean connection. But I love the idea that the setup ball is there, the slip passes are on.
Well, we have seen Herrera pull that off before, but it's a little bit more central and he has a lot more space to work with. But this one, he was falling away from goal. He would have had to drag it all the way back across Fitzgerald. So it certainly was a tough opportunity, but I mean, we're dissecting it because it's really been one of the only opportunities of the game so far.
Yeah. And we've seen Herrera do that, but it's one of those things if you're in the middle of the goal and have a player on your back. But if you're past the frame of the goal and have time, that's a different thing. But when you're past the frame and have a player on your back, it's not the easiest opportunity.
Clearance from Donnie Smith. He's claiming there was a handball. Came off of Guenzati.
You have to wonder if refs don't mind going into Charlotte now this year, because remember last year just the way that the Martinez brothers would like tag team and team up. If one was taken out, they both were taken out, and a ref heard it from both of them. So seeing Alex Martinez have a couple words just gave me a flashback to last year when Enzo would have been all up in his face as well.
Well, now it's referees in Major League Soccer that have to deal with the antics of Enzo Martinez, although he has been playing extremely well. Colorado, maybe not so much as a team, but Enzo has certainly gotten his minutes and made a name for himself with the Rapids. It started off in the CONCACAF Champions League. And he sort of earned his spot, and there have been some injuries, and he's been able to get some minutes and get an opportunity. But obviously Mike Jeffries and everybody around the Charlotte Independents, when they got the news he was going to sign a contract, were absolutely thrilled for him. Here's Hunter Gorsky working on Alex Martinez, and Martinez gets the better of him. And it'll come out the other way. And those two exchanging email addresses afterwards.
Good work from Martinez to put in the work on the defensive side of the ball.
Foster. Donnie Smith. Well, would you look at that 86th minute? We mentioned FC Cincinnati up 3-1. It's now 3-3 up in Canada. TFC2 1 moment away from getting their first win of the season against the first place team in the Eastern Conference. Just another day in the United Soccer League. And the Pittsburgh Riverhounds with a 1-0 lead over the reigning champions in the 85th minute. And that's music to Charlotte Independence fans' ears. Bernardo Forbes with the lone tally in that one just a few minutes ago. Ekra driving forward. It's a great move out wide for Joel Johnson. Johnson whips it in, but nobody at the back post. And one might look at that and fault Joel Johnson, but there was no run being made closer to frame. It's actually not a bad ball from the Spaniard.
And it's not a bad ball. It was set up by his first touch that cut off all the defenders. They were expecting him to take that touch closer to the end line. That's where they started running, but he cuts it back onto his left foot. And the way that it tails towards the goal, if there was a runner on that back post, it would have been a simple one to slap back across and then a finish. So yeah, that's one that people look at and say Johnson should have done better. He did have two options, take it with his right foot or cut it to his left, but I like the way he looked for something different.
Good work from Donnie Smith, able to knock it off of Guenzati and win possession for Charlotte. Herrera caught a knock in the middle of the park. Believe it was Joe Cole. And Charlotte are just going to go ahead and play quickly with Tampa Bay arguing with the referee. Joel Johnson on the move. Cordell Cato. Jacks are threatening, but again, it's Tampa Bay getting a plethora of numbers behind the ball and then stopping any sort of Charlotte Independence attack in a moment's notice. It has to be wildly frustrating as Herrera has his first touch let him down. Johnson. Cordell Cato. Kai Foster was asking for it. Alex Martinez after the pass from Kevon George was a little bit behind him. Jan Ekra taken down and a set piece coming up for the Jacks.
Charlotte has had their best build-ups or opportunities when they find the central ball, get a couple dribbles essentially on the penetration, and then look to pass. That's when they're at their best because it's so easy to play slow. Right now, Charlotte's passing with a 91% accuracy because there's so many simple balls. But I love this. It's a player on the ball, penetrating, find the quick one to Ekra. If he turned, he would have been in. He gets taken down, and this is a good look for Charlotte, a good place for them to have a set piece.
Well, it's not a good look to have Jan Ekra down. 27-year-old from the Ivory Coast has become one of their key attacking players moving forward. 3 goals and 2 assists on the season. Came up from the Lyon Youth Academy. He's actually roommates with Karim Benzema, Real Madrid superstar forward who, albeit was left off of the France roster for the World Cup. As Jan Ekra will now receive some medical attention. There are a few options for Mike Jeffries moving forward. You'd most likely see a Greg Jordan, Matai Moape, or perhaps an Ayman Zaid if Ekra cannot continue, but it looks like he's at least able to walk it off for the time being.
And we'd like to thank our starting 11 sponsors for their support of the Charlotte Independence, including Novant Health.
And now there's some defensive work to do for the Rowdies as Ekra comes off. Herrera Martinez standing on top of it. Morgan, do they have a look on frame?
I think this is a ball that should be whipped in. We've seen goals from this distance. I think it's a little tough. if Herrera can strike it to that far post. With his right foot, it looks like he's going to hit it, because if he played it in, it would be a left-footed ball in.
Herrera, he will go for goal straight into the wall, and Johan Graf can just clear it away. Morgan, I would tend to agree with you there. I think having Donnie Smith on top of that set piece and whipping it in and causing some problems in that corridor of uncertainty wouldn't have been a bad idea. But we have seen Herrera score some terrific free kicks in his career.
Now, if it was Drogba on the ball, we've seen some of those before.
That's a little bit too close for Didier Drogba.
That's true. I just think at that point you have numbers in the box. You have players with size 6'2", 6'3", who can get up and challenge. Keep a player on the even wider on the far post in case it really squeaks its way through.
Rare giveaway there from Donnie Smith as he just literally passes that out of play. Good defensive work from Lee Jung-soo, able to win the ball back. As we're into stoppage time in those two matches between Louisville and Pittsburgh and Toronto FC2 and FC Cincinnati. Scorelines are the same, 3-3 up in Canada and 1-0 to Pittsburgh at Slugger Field. Could be looking at a potential Eastern Conference final preview with that Louisville game. Is that a fair statement, Morgan?
I could see that, and they're such different teams, which is one thing I love about the game of soccer in general, but especially if you want to look at the Eastern Conference, a lot of these top teams play such different styles. And then if you want to take the field into account, Louisville playing on a more narrow field right now at Slugger Field, playing against a defensively strong team in Pittsburgh, that definitely gives them a bit of the advantage if you look at just the way that Pittsburgh plays. So if you put all that into account and then bring it into the playoffs, I don't know. I mean, come on. That is just, there's so much on the line there.
Well, you could be looking at a situation where Louisville, I mean, due to their injuries and obviously with this U.S. Open Cup run now, they might be in a position where they're not hosting every single playoff game like they did in 2017. And if that's the case, they're unbelievably talented, and even though there weren't that many roster changes from last year, they are a different team on the road. I mean, Slugger is a huge advantage, but when you have a team like Pittsburgh who are so defensive-minded, even if a playoff game were to be on the road, it plays into Bob Lilly's hands. But then if you look at FC Cincinnati on how wide of a field that is, as Johan Graf is posting up inside of the area, but broken up by Watson and helping up Graf. I mean, teams love going in to Nippert just because the atmosphere is electric. I mean, look at that young Bethlehem Steel team in the USL Game of the Week last week, going in down a man and still able to come back and get a point out of that. As it is going to be a yellow card and some birthday mustard for Hunter Gorsky in the 44th.
Tyler, going back to what you were saying, Nippert, playing at Nippert is one of those things you cannot replicate that unless you play in an atmosphere like that, the fans, and it's one of those moments that is, after you leave that game, no matter the result, you're a different player. You grow from that because you're thrown into that environment, especially when you look at some of the young players in the league. They've probably never played in an environment like that, which is pretty hostile if you're an opposing team. So it's one of those things that, of course, people love to play in that. You thrive in that, and it's one of those games that you circle on your calendar because you know it'll be so different than every other game that you play.
Well, it certainly can look different for the likes of an 18-year-old like Benjamin Ofimu, or a 17-year-old like Brandon Aronson at the Bethlehem Steel, who Charlotte will be taking on this weekend. That game will be at Goodman Stadium in the Lehigh Valley, so a quick turnaround for Mike Jeffrey's side as they will head up the coast a little bit, as we're going to have 1 minute of stoppage time here at the Sportsplex at Matthews to what's been a rather lackluster first half, and that's putting it mildly. Here's Gorsky. Joe Cole. Good tackle from Alex Martinez, never afraid to put in his defensive responsibilities. And he gets a little how do you do from Sebastian Guenzati. Charlotte again will play quickly. Final moments of the first half. Joel Johnson moving forward. Ball sent ahead to Jan Ekra. Ekra on the turn. Cordell Cato. Thought about it. Cato trying to squeeze his way through. And that's going to do it for the first half. 0-0 is the score here at the Sportsplex at Matthews between the Jacks and the Tampa Bay Rowdies. And I really don't think that that surprised anybody who was with us for the entire 45 minutes. Virtually no chances for either team. No saves to be had for either Fitzgerald or Andrew Dykstra. And that's how the first 45 minutes comes to an end. Morgan Conklin, your thoughts?
I'm looking forward to the second half and how it's better in terms of just the play. Tampa Bay has yet to record a shot. They've had moments. They've been good in transition when they can pick the ball up in the middle of the park and then get at the Charlotte back line. But for Charlotte, they have a tough task having a majority of the ball, but also having to go against a team in Tampa Bay with so many players behind the ball. So how can they force Tampa Bay out of their defensive shape? How can they stretch that back line out and all of those players behind the ball to find the pockets? Martinez has been good on the ball and the penetration. How can they continue to make things happen in a tight area? It comes down to patience, but I want to see more.
Well, that's going to do it for the first half. When we come back, we'll take a look at some of the upcoming games for the Charlotte Independents. Stay with us.
Tarjeta.
¿No encuentras tu tarjeta de débito? Desactívala con tu app.
Disculpa, estoy buscando mi tarjeta.
Esta es la tuya, ¿cierto?
Sí.
Y cuando la encuentres, vuélvela a activar. Takes the shot and puts it in the back of the net.
Oh, what a strike from the captain! He's got it!
Charlotte and Tampa Bay battling here at the Sportsplex at Matthews. 0-0 is the score, and I don't really have written anything down on my chart so far because that's basically what's been going on. But what's going to be going on for the Charlotte Independents this weekend is a great matchup with Brendan Burke's Young Stars over in the Lehigh Valley and at Goodman Stadium. Charlotte will be taking on the Bethlehem Steel Saturday in what should be a terrific matchup with two playoff teams from a year ago. Bethlehem currently on the outside looking in, but Brendan Burke's team has looked solid as of late. They have a couple games in hand. They're looking to make good on it.
And they're buzzing right now, getting a result against New York Red Bulls too, where they came back and scored the tying goal in the last seconds of the game. James Chambers getting the game tying goal. Normally you're not that happy to get 1 point, but for them to be able to earn that and come back in that game really showed a lot of progress from their team. So young, but when they're doing well, when they're playing well, getting results, they're confident, and they're so much better as a team when they have that confidence. So it's a good matchup going into Bethlehem for Charlotte, and especially when you look at the schedule that they have coming up.
Well, the schedule that they have coming up is daunting to say the least. At Indy 11 and Lucas Oil, home against Nashville and against the side they got to the round of 16 in the U.S. Open Cup. And then they're at FC Cincinnati, currently sitting in first place. That game moved to ESPN2 at 8 p.m. with Mike Watson, Devin Kerr. And then they're at Slugger Field to take on the champions, albeit a beaten-up champions. And then Charlotte fans will say, okay, we got a little bit of a break at the end, but Penn FC has been playing some good football as of late as well. I mean, they're coming off at 3 points against Tampa Bay.
And before they even get there, you're playing 4 of the top 6 teams in the Eastern Conference, 3 of those games which are on the road. So road games are already tough in its own right, and then looking at the teams that you have to go up against makes it even tougher. So yeah, they may be looking forward to that Penn FC game at the end of July. Granted, Penn FC's playing pretty well as of late, but they cannot overlook any of those games because that's a daunting schedule coming up, and knowing that you have to go on the road and get performances at some of these really tough places.
Well, you talked about 4 of these teams being in the top 6, and with that, we'll take a look at our Wells Fargo Eastern Conference standings, and Morgan FC Cincinnati currently sitting in first. That score from Toronto FC2 is a final, a 3-3 finish after FC Cincinnati was up 3-1. And we look at the Charlotte Independents here, currently sitting in 5th place. Louisville City not getting any points. That's a final result as well with the Pittsburgh Riverhounds. So a win tonight, any sort of lucky bounce off a set piece, and Charlotte is looking at 2nd place. Louisville has a couple games in hand, but I mean, you know, it's just a great opportunity for them to be able to leapfrog.
And it's one of those things, if you look at right now, between 2 and 10 is 5 points. So 2 wins and a team is in good position, in playoff position. You look at Charlotte right now, if they can pick off a couple of those games on the road, we talked about how difficult it is to play there, and pick those off, they're in a good spot. But then if they don't get results, all these teams can either leapfrog them or just continue to separate themselves.
Well, it's Pittsburgh who's actually going to be in 2nd place with 28 points, but Charlotte do have the opportunity to be able to tie the Pittsburgh Riverhounds this season. I apologize, folks. I just had to do it. Morgan brought it up earlier. That's going to do it for our Wells Fargo Eastern Conference standings. We're going to take a break, but don't go anywhere. Week 15 highlights from the United Soccer League, and like every single week, it is just absolutely electric. Take a look.
A salute is certainly in the works. Thank you, Marcel. Marcel Schaefer playing it. Can he service one in? Goal! Leon Taylor from Marcel Schaefer.
There's no question we've had our fair share of impressive free kicks this season.
Van Aving.
Off the crossbar and in, and it's 1-0 Reno.
Here comes Malcolm, takes a shot, and he scores! Shane Malcolm off the free kick! Puts Switchbacks FC on top.
He lines this up, he's gonna drill it hard. Curling ball, that's in, it's tied to 2-2. What a free kick.
Really looks interesting. Here is Kuzay curling it! Sensational strike from Kuzay! Enter now, pocket of space. Deflected strike, that's a fantastic save. Dykstra just rolled through Mark, ball still loose in the area.
Left foot, Van Oekel had to come up with the save.
Good build-up play, Wakaso shoots, great save by Nelson.
Now it's going to be Bajevin, outsprawled. Gomez comes up with a big 6.
In space. This is way back across for White. Saved by Crapo. Sanovic on his left. Seth Sanovic.
Shot on goal, it's in. Cameron Owasa with number 6 on the year.
Cipollani staying with it. Cipollani back across, yes! And how about North Carolina FC?
Got some help. This is a shot that finds the back of the net. Upper last man back in. It will be Reed who will score again. Reed inside the 18. Left-footed strike, and it's a hat trick. For number 30.
Shot comes on, and Akira able to use his fists.
Omar can't finish. Great save with the left foot there by Marcinkowski.
Now Sacramento push it forward. Owasa comes back for it from Paul. Matiasic to his right. Goes side, being held. Can be a foul shot on goal. It's in. Cameron Owasa with number 6 on the year.
Oh my God, Cam Owasa made that look so easy. 27th minute. Van Avik off the crossbar and in, and it's 1-0 Reno, 1868.
Attacking spot in the center of the field. Here's another overlapping run. It's Reed again who's on the move. Reed into the 18, left-footed strike, and it's a hat trick for number 30 for Ottawa.
It says it's a free kick for the Swope Park Rangers. Taken short. Sanovic left! Seth Sanovic!
One from the left, one from the right, one right down the middle. Here comes Malcolm, takes a shot, and he scores! Dane Malcolm off the free kick!
But the real is, now it's going to be Benjamin. Gomez comes in with a big save.
Great job.
Back across, going to be 2-1. Tampakis gets down and gets, oh, that was almost 5 goal right there. Speedy Williams nipped the move. He'll take a shot. Come back to swat it away.
Enter now, pocket of space. Deflected strike. That's a fantastic save.
This is how Angel Alvarez will continue to earn more playing time. That ball is bending in.
Back across. Save Crapo and White on the scene. Puts it over the ball. For that, the header wide and a brilliant save from Serta. Plays right time.
Jack's House Soccer Bar and Retail Store, located near American Legion Memorial Stadium. There you can watch all the World Cup action. For event dates and bar hours, follow Jack's House on Twitter and Instagram at Jack's House CLT, or check out jackshouseclt.com.
Back here at the Sportsplex at Matthews, and obviously another just fantastic week in the United Soccer League's Week 15 as we're currently in the 16th week of this season. Hard to believe we're already here about the halfway point right now, and we're at the halfway point of this one between Charlotte and Tampa Bay. And really not much to write home about at the moment, Morgan, as it's 0-0, and there have not been a whole lot of chances, if any. And we'll take a look at some of the leading goal scorers in the United Soccer League, just because we haven't had any here yet at the Sportsplex at Matthews. And Carlton Bell, Martinez, and Volson, Nico Brett, Daniel Rios leading the pack. 9 players have 7 goals this season, one of whom currently playing tonight, and that's Cordell Cato. What do you like up here, Morgan?
I like Carlton Belmar. Really good last year as well. Always a threat going forward. But I would really like Cordell Cato if he can get on the score sheet tonight. Then we'll see his face on this graphic next time. But yeah, I mean, Nico Brett's so good, especially at the beginning of the season, the goals that he was putting in for the Pittsburgh Riverhounds, a team so good defensively. So when you have such an offensive threat, he's really pulling the strings for them, putting it in the back of the net.
And there are 3 players from the Phoenix Rising Football Club who are also nipping at the heels as some of these leading goal scorers. Jason Johnson, Chris Cortez, both with 7. Solomon Asante with 6. They're going to be in action against Thomas Enevolson's Orange County Friday night at 10:30 Eastern time. That should be a terrific Western Conference matchup. And speaking of terrific matchups, we're going to take a look at the upcoming ESPN USL Game of the Week schedule in just a moment. But some of these big names for the USL in their goal scoring capabilities. Carlton Belmar was actually stuck on 8 goals for an extremely long time. And there we go, finally able to take a look at some of the biggest games that the United Soccer League has to offer as the players are making their way back out onto the field. Cordell Cato having a conversation with Javon Watson. And the Charlotte team getting prepared for a second half that'll hopefully be slightly more entertaining than the first. Andrew Dykstra looking to stay warm here as the weather is, looked like for the time being, is passed here, Morgan. We were delayed by about 30 minutes due to some thunderstorms in the area. Lightning did strike within a few miles, asking fans to take cover and pushing the kickoff time back, but we were able to get the first half in. And some of the upcoming games for the USL Game of the Week, some very intriguing matchups. Indy 11 will be at home against Ottawa Fury Football Club. Ottawa has started to play a lot better. They got a 3-0 win on the road against New York Red Bulls 2. Donajay Reed with a hat trick. OKC hosting Las Vegas Lights. Never know what's going to happen when Isidro Sanchez and his father toe the touchline, and then FC Cincinnati playing host to the Charlotte Independence July 18th, and San Antonio FC playing host to Colorado Springs, who's actually sitting in 8th place at the moment. That's going to do it for the halftime show, but don't go anywhere. Second half kickoff right around the corner.
My card.
Misplace your debit card? Turn it off with your app.
Excuse me, my card,
This one's gotta be yours, right?
Yes.
And turn it on when you find it.
Almost ready for the second 45 minutes here in the greater Charlotte area. Tyler Terrence along with former Virginia Tech Hokie Morgan Conklin. No highlights from the first half because, quite honestly, there were none. We're hoping for a little bit more of excitement here at the Sportsplex at Matthews in the second half, albeit, Morgan, when you look at these two teams and the way that they've been going, a point wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. For Charlotte, maybe they're getting sick of draws because they've had 3 in a row. For Tampa Bay, they haven't drawn on the road yet this season. They're 2-5-0. I mean, against a playoff team, Neal Collins and his side still trying to figure out what they're going to look like moving from the back up. A draw isn't the worst thing in the world.
And that's what I mentioned in the first half when we were wondering why maybe it wasn't as strong of a first half that we would have liked. But that's definitely a game plan that Tampa Bay can have coming in, is to play a strong 45, get to halftime 0-0, have a strong defensive presence, which they did bring. They had numbers behind the ball. And then maybe really get after it in the last 20 minutes, last 25, and really push after Charlotte. But I think that's what we saw in the first half, a team trying to find their identity and right now just playing safe, especially because they're on the road and they haven't had much success.
We'll flip sides here in the second half of the Sportsplex at Matthews. Alex Martinez sends it over for Joel Johnson. Kai Foster coming back deep to receive it. Good challenge in the middle of the park from Joe Cole. Now Tampa Bay off and running. Good opportunity here on the counterattack. Leo Fernandez nipped down from behind by Johnson. Fernandez going for goal, and it just flashes wide and right on cue in the first 70 seconds of the second half. More entertainment than we saw in the entire first 45 minutes.
Well done from Fernandez to get that ball on his left foot and get at the back line. It's a tough angle because he's going away from goal, but he still gets a nice look on frame. He's able to hold off Joel Johnson, uses his body. Dykstra doesn't even get a touch there because it's already going wide, but we're seeing a different look from Tampa Bay. Like you said, their first shot of the game. So it's good to see them get forward. That's what we missed. We didn't see any of that in the first half.
I'm sure that's what every coach wants to hear, is that their first shot comes in the first couple minutes of the first half. As this one squirts across, but it's going to be a handball. Won't count. Popped up on Johan Graf in a rather disadvantageous way. Former Rochester Rhino.
Okay. Copy that.
So it's called back, but already in the first 3 minutes, we've seen more attacking from Tampa Bay than we saw at all in the first half. Because if we did see them get forward, it was off transition, which they were pretty strong there, but there wasn't really any work in the final third. There wasn't that extra explosive run or trying to find that pass. So already we're seeing that this is a different team coming out of halftime. So on the other end, Charlotte needs to match that. They maybe don't have as much time to just build up and have that slow attack.
Cato keeps it in play. The assistant referee was right on the scene. Cato, good ball in. Fitzgerald parries it away. Only as far as Jan Ekra. Ekra putting it on frame himself, but it doesn't get there. Good block in front from Makandawiri. Back out for Cato. Kevon George. Now it's Joel Johnson. And it slows to a crawl yet again for Charlotte. Kai Foster. In for Cato. Donnie Smith looking to make a penetrating run. Jorge Herrera. He'll unleash from distance. Blocked. Foster can't bring it down. Alex Martinez now over for Donnie Smith. Flag is up. Offside.
That offside call is one of the frustrations of dealing with the team that gets so many numbers behind the ball, because you're finally looking to stretch and get in behind them, but they've crept up and their back line is high enough to then catch Smith offside.
Here's Lakowecki. Fernandez on Joel Johnson. Early delivery. Johnson handles it, not exactly cleanly. Looked like it had stayed in initially, but the ball was in the air. It actually crossed the line entirely. Jan Ekra. Here's Kevon George. Charlotte continue to probe against this very sound and compact Tampa Bay defense. Kai Foster changing direction more than once. And does not have any questions to ask of Neal Collins' crew at the moment. Cato unleashing from distance. Takes a deflection off of a Rowdy.
Cordell Cato just did the smallest thing, but it made such a difference. He checked to the ball. He wasn't just waiting, standing on the line with the Tampa Bay defenders. That's what we're seeing a lot of since the play is so slow. Attackers are just kind of staying and they're stagnant. But you saw him check to the ball, trying to create space, looked for the quick shot. But it's just the fact that he's trying to move and do something different because there's no space.
Smith, big sweeping ball over for Joel Johnson. He'll be able to get there. One outside, back to another. Pulled back for Cato. Cato whips it across. And it's more good defensive work from the Rowdies' back line. Fernandez held up, still battling with Johnson. And it will be a foul against the Defensive Player of the Year finalist. And we'll get a look at that shot from Cordell Cato. Well, it hits Lakowecki in the elbow, but his arm is tucked in. For me, it's not a handball. How about you?
I wouldn't say that's a handball. I could see why Charlotte players, if I was on the opposing team, I would probably yell for a handball, but I think that's the correct call in not calling it because he didn't make his arm bigger. He didn't extend his body to help him out and get a touch there. If his arm wasn't there, it would have hit his body. And it's not like the ball fell to his feet afterwards, so I agree that should be a no call.
So at the end of the day, good work from Marcos de Oliveira. More good work from Leo Fernandez. Finding Nanchoff. Terrific from Joe Cole just to keep it in the area. Hunter Gorsky sitting on a yellow card and sitting on some birthday candles, celebrating his 27th, number 27 on June 27th.
Tyler, if you think over the course of this game, Tampa Bay is one chance, one goal away from this whole entire game being totally different, because the way that they're sitting in, if they have that 1-goal cushion, they can just ride out the rest of the 90 minutes. They're playing so defensive, getting numbers behind the ball, really not looking to get forward or forcing anything, not in any rush. But if they can sneak one in or take their opportunities, granted they've been limited, but if they can get one on the board, it makes it that much more difficult for Charlotte, because they're not really giving them much space to create for Charlotte. So if they have a 1-goal lead and can just sit in even more, it literally is parking the bus. It becomes that much more difficult.
Well, the bus is off and running in the form of Johan Graf. Now Tampa Bay will look to keep the ball and ask Charlotte to do some defending, because first half stats were about 67% possession in favor of the Independents. That's no surprise from Mike Jeffrey's side. They like to keep the ball, but at times they can get caught with the dreaded meaningless possession. That's a lot of what we've seen here tonight. Joe Cole. A lot of European experience between Kai Foster and Cole in the middle of the park. Like most know Joe Cole's resume between Liverpool, Chelsea, West Ham. Kai Foster, nothing to sneeze at either. 31 years old from down in Switzerland. Good defending from Joel Johnson, ended up being a goal kick. But more on Foster. Actually beat Chelsea in the 2013-14 UEFA Champions League. Spent a number of years with FC Basel and with Fulham. Got to a Europa League semi-final and played alongside Liverpool sensation and Egyptian superstar Mohamed Salah. Rough challenge on the back of Jan Ecker. He appears to be all right. He was looking for a foul. Neal Collins loves the aggressive play from his back line. Cato. There he goes. Cordell Cato whips it across. Herrera! Well, it's taken 56.5 minutes to see some sort of life from either team. It's Cordell Cato who orchestrates the play. Jorge Herrera, the finisher. And the Charlotte Independents are finally off and running in the 57th. 1-0 to the home side.
We needed to see more 1v1 from Cato. He is so strong out wide. That is when he is at his best, and that's what we saw. Gets after this back line, has a little stutter, sets the ball right across into the path of Herrera. He cuts it back, but Herrera is able to run onto it, is able to find that space. That's how you break down teams that sit in. It takes one person to get after the back line, find that space wide because it was on, and Cato completely set that whole goal up, just took it upon himself, makes Herrera's job simple, but Herrera did a great job getting into that space.
7th goal on the season for Jorge Herrera. Great assist from Cordell Cato, who, like Morgan said, just took matters into his own hands or his own feet, what have you. Johan Graf will come off, and the all-time leading goal scorer in the history of the Tampa Bay Rowdies, Georgi Ristov, the Bulgarian, will come on. Well, it was the first time that we saw Tampa Bay out of sorts defensively, and there was just acres of space for Cordell Cato, and you could see as soon as that space was given to Cato, I mean, they gave him an inch and he took about 3 miles.
And that was the difference. Earlier in the first half, we saw him flirt a little bit with the end line. He didn't really commit all the way, but there wasn't as much space there. So he saw the way that the back line of Tampa Bay was set up. He had a little bit more space than he did in the first half, and he completely went after them. So good 1v1, just a little stutter, finds the space, and then just the awareness to get that ball off, because he had a defender closing him, but he knew that if he was going to get the cross off, it had to go quickly.
Now Tampa Bay looking for a response and trying to avoid their perpetual road woes. Good ball whipped in. Ristov was there. Might still be on for Tampa Bay yet. Fernandez's shot saved by Dykstra. Good response from Neal Collins' club, but Dykstra up for the task. It's his first save, and it comes in the 59th minute.
I think that Charlotte goal really woke both these sides up. It's a nice ball sent across, good connection, and just the awareness to get back on the other side of it. The ball sent back. Fernandez looks to hit that one, but a good job from Dykstra because you expect that one to go to the far post. So it was almost surprising that it ended up in the middle of the goal, but a good reaction from him to see that and still account for it.
Oduro running the middle of the park for Tampa Bay tonight, getting his first look in around his uniform. And Tampa Bay give away possession. Almost played an hour here at the Sportsplex in Matthews. Jorge Herrera breaking the deadlock just a few moments ago in the 57th. Cordell Cato with the assist. And with 3 points tonight, Charlotte can move into a tie in second place with the Pittsburgh Riverhounds. And Herrera's goal, his 7th, ties him with Cordell Cato for the team lead. And it's just another player in the USL who's on 7 goals. Make that now 10. Ekra taken down. Marcos de Oliveira says play on. Cordell Cato over for Herrera. The chemistry and synchronicity of those two growing with every game they play together. Certainly a different look, as we discussed earlier in the broadcast, than the Enzo Martinez and Jorge Herrera days, but effective nonetheless. Cato. Charlotte really opening things up now. And up 1-0 at home. And with Tampa Bay, who's been sitting in a shell the entire game so far, daring them to come out of it. Good step from Kevon George. It falls in a fortuitous fashion for Tampa Bay. Fernandez linking up with Nanchoff. It's good interplay. But a good challenge from Kevon George and Andrew Dykstra. Asking for some pressure, and it comes in the form of Georgi Ristov. And Ristov getting a little bit of a break, not getting the start tonight with the midweek action, but as we talked about, Morgan, Tampa Bay is off on the weekend. I mean, this is a good opportunity to go ahead and try to get a point, if not 3. So you'll have that full recovery time coming up.
And in the first 45, it didn't look like we were going to see that at all from either team getting 3 points, but both have really come alive since that goal. Tampa Bay, some of their best opportunities, but also just the pace in which they're playing and the way that they're committing to go forward. We didn't see that in the first half really at all. So I think that's been the biggest change. Yeah, of course, they don't have anything for them on the score sheet yet, but the idea to attack is totally different in the second half.
Oduro. Good challenge from Johnson. Cato. Oh, it's beautiful football from Charlotte. Ekra thought about finding Alex Martinez. Ends up doing so. Martinez. Donnie Smith asking for it, and he shall receive. Smith trying to get on his left foot, sends it across. Herrera over for Cato. Cordell Cato, oh my goodness, what a finish! He thumps it home, not giving Fitzgerald any chance in the world. It's the Cato-Herrera connection once again. And the Independents have doubled their lead here at the Sportsplex at Matthews, 2-0.
Okay, Cato, the way that Herrera first off holds up this ball, knows that he has Cato on his backside. You think he's gonna slide it to the far post on the ground, but come on. Cordell Cato hits that with a vengeance. He wanted to get that into the back of the net. Come on, that angle, he had no angle there. Closed down whatsoever. Maybe could have had an angle with his left foot, but to strike that with his right, and the way that he hit that,
Cordell Cato with now his team leading 8th goal of the season. Says to Jorge Herrera, anything you can do, I can do better. And those two right now have the Independents flying after a sluggish first half. Mike Jeffrey's side putting on a clinic in the first 20 minutes of the second half. Now up 2-0, and the Tampa Bay Rowdies scratching their heads yet again on the road.
well, in Cato and Herrera once again showing why we hear so much about them as a partnership. Setting one another up for the goals, both finishing on the night. Cato inching his way into that graphic that we saw at halftime.
So it's a goal and an assist for both Herrera and Cato. It's Cato's second assist of the season to the goal for Herrera. Herrera gets his third. Between the two of them, they account for 15 Charlotte goals. Good ball sent in, and Dykstra with a very important touch. And Morgan, you mentioned the first Charlotte goal waking Tampa Bay up a little bit. I think a second might do it double.
This is a total different match. We're seeing two completely different teams. Dykstra does a nice job accounting for that, because with the traffic that he had in front of him, I couldn't tell who hit that ball, but it's a good look on frame, and Dykstra had to respond. But once again, Tampa Bay getting another chance in the same place.
It's in for Joe Cole on the first time off of Lee Jung-soo, sent across. Might have been a handball, but it's thumped home anyway. Tampa Kondawiri gets the tally for Tampa Bay. Hunter Gorsky is down, and you can see he is gushing blood from his head and is going to receive immediate medical attention. The most unkind of birthday presents for number 27. But for Tampa Bay, they take a 2-1 lead in the form of Tampa Kondawiri, but now to the forefront of it all is the health of Hunter Gorsky as he took a knock to the head.
Hey, the ref excuses everybody gets hit in the head. It's a joke. Talk to him. Talk to him. Don't go the excuse. Unbelievable, man. Okay, you guys lose the game just like that.
Rowdies goal.
You see and you hear Alex Martinez frustrated with the refs, but that's a complete 50-50 ball. You hate to see both players injured by that. First off, looking at the replay, Cole plays it in, and then it's two players both jumping up, both going for the ball.
It's Javon Watson who collided with Gorsky. And Morgan, you said it's a 50-50 ball. I mean, it's part of the game sometimes. It's an occupational hazard.
And you hate to see that because they're jumping up as the ball's going up, so they're trying to take account for where it is, and they just knock heads. So you hate to see that, but in no way is that a foul whatsoever. There was no push, there's no shove, there's no shoulder to head. It's two players going up, one trying to clear it out and one trying to head it towards frame.
It's actually Kevon George. He's certainly gotten his bell rung. It's always interesting to me how one player can end up bloodied and, you know, probably going to require stitches, and then George, I don't want to say he's walking away okay, but at least standing up underneath his own power at the moment as Gorsky continues to be worked on by the medical staff. And the short sleeve button down king of Matthews looks on. Been a rough go of it for Hunter Gorsky. Showing a yellow card relatively early in this game, and just a massive gash on his head now. And if there's no clear concussion, to be confirmed by the medical staff. I mean, you could see Gorsky continuing.
Look at the sportsmanship that you're seeing from these Charlotte players. Jorge Herrera wiping the blood off of Gorsky's face. Javon Watson helping him get his bandage on his head as well. You hope Gorsky can continue. You hope it's nothing too bad. Sometimes with those headers, just a little touch can cause a split, and you see all that blood, which we hope it's nothing major. Definitely think he'll probably get stitches as his present from this match on his birthday, but you hope that he can continue, especially being such a big player for Tampa Bay on a team that's had so many changes and had to deal with so many different things.
Well, you mentioned the sportsmanship, Morgan, and you know, Jorge Herrera has been around for some time here in the Charlotte area, and it's no knock against Javon Watson, as Gorsky, it looks like, is going to be able to continue, and they have a fresh jersey for him. A road warrior indeed. But back on Herrera, Morgan, I mean, talk to anybody in the Charlotte camp, they just tell you that Jorge Herrera is one of the nicest guys you will ever meet. He's also a high school coach at Charlotte Christian and has won multiple state championships. Just does a terrific job with the community, with outreach. As Hunter Gorsky will get things taken care of on the sideline. Tampa Kandawiri, meanwhile, cutting the deficit in half for Tampa Bay with his first goal of the season. And both Kevon George and Hunter Gorsky, after having a meeting of the minds, will come back out onto the field for their respective teams, and we'll play on. We got a game on our hands.
But my question is, how does that, first off the goal, how do both teams respond to the goal from Tampa Bay, but how do they respond to that stoppage of time? Because that's a long time to not be playing, to have to tend to an injured player, to have to hope that both sides are okay. So do we see the lull come back at least for a little bit? Because for Tampa Bay, credit to the ref for allowing them to play on with it being a 50-50 ball that caused that collision. But for Tampa Bay, you just score a goal, cut the lead in half, but then you just have to wait X amount of minutes to restart the contest.
Good build up again from Tampa Bay. And as Morgan said, I mean, just two different matches between the first half and the second half. It was almost as if both teams were going into it saying, we're just going to fill you out for the first 45 minutes, not do anything too crazy, and then we'll just have at it in the second. And it's made for some really entertaining football. Fernandez. Oduro. Still all three substitutes remain for Mike Jeffries. Two for Neal Collins, who's already brought on Georgi Ristov right after Jorge Herrera got things started in the 57th. Dangerous ball from Joel Johnson. Charlotte looking to answer the Makandawiri goal. Alex Martinez towards the byline. Puts the brakes on, still with it. Kai Fosser not able to get there, and Tampa Bay come away with it, and Charlotte are exposed. Jack's trying to get numbers behind the ball. Manchoff directing traffic. Fernandez.
Herrera quarterbacking his teams, telling them to step up, get higher. They were lucky that Tampa Bay wasn't able to build an attack off that, so they then could get their numbers behind the ball. But if you look at some of the movements that we've seen from Alex Martinez, I know I mentioned we want to see more from him. He wants more from himself. He does a really good job 1v1, and he makes his move, but he has trouble finding separation from his defender. So oftentimes his crosses are blocked or deflected for a corner. But sometimes he struggles. He's good to get into the space, and he gets there and he pulls off his move, but then there's no separation touch or no separation in the move. So it usually leads to a turnover, and then he has to put the work in behind, or the pass doesn't come off, and the whole team has to drop and defend.
Here he is on the ball again. Looking to create something for Charlotte. Good ball in for Cato. It'll fall for him. Now Joel Johnson, numbers arriving in the box. Joel Johnson, great little move. Cuts it back to his right. Johnson whips it across, and a terrific defensive play from the back line of the Rowdies. Into the path of Ristov, but a little bit too much mustard on it. But Georgie welcoming the challenge and asking his teammates to join in to try to pin down Charlotte in their own defensive third. About 15 minutes left in this one, albeit we're going to have at least 3 or 4 minutes of stoppage time at the very minimum. With the already 3 goals and injury to both Kevon George and Hunter Gorsky when they collided heads on the Tampa Condawari goal in the 66th minute, which came just 2 minutes after Cordell Cato doubled the delight for Charlotte. Ristov working on Lee Jung-soo. Ends up squirting out to Donnie Smith. And we're getting word that it's going to be Greg Jordan coming on to replace Kai Fosser. So a like for Mike Jeffries. Joel Johnson liking what he sees in front of him. Herrera already with a goal to his name and an assist towards the back post. Alex Martinez, tardy to the party, but arrives nonetheless. Martinez looking for Jan Ekra. Broken up by Dom Oduro. And that sub will take place. Greg Jordan. Looked like he forgot he had his penny on for a moment. It looks like Alex Morel is about to come on for Neal Collins as well, but Kai Fosser, the 31-year-old out of Switzerland, coming off here in the 76th. The solid shift running the middle of the park and making sure Charlotte had possession of the ball. Will make way for the 27-year-old out of Naperville, Illinois, in his first season with the Independents. And no stranger to the state of North Carolina. Coming on here in the 77. 32nd overall pick by Philadelphia Union in 2012. And Alex Morel coming on. Joe Cole making way for number 9. Morel, a native of Lakeland, Florida.
Entering the game, number 9, Alex Morel. Exiting the game, number 26, Joe Cole.
So the 2 big European names in the middle of the park coming off for both coaches, bringing on some fresh legs, trying to inject some energy into the most important part of the field. Did you ever think that we were going to see 3 goals with still 15 minutes to play after that first half?
Honestly, no. I thought we might end up with a 0-0 draw, both teams getting a point, but we would all agree that this game really opened up and completely changed with that Herrera goal, getting on the board first, and then the response from Tampa Bay and Charlotte both getting back on the score sheet. And I think we've just seen, I wouldn't even say the game has opened up because we're still seeing both teams defend and get behind the ball, but we've just seen a little bit more urgency when on the ball.
Good move from Tampa Bay. Oh, it's a very important touch from Kevon George. And it's sparking the counterattack the other way. Cordell Cato was held up in blatant fashion. Has to be a yellow card. And indeed it will be for Lakowecki. Well, perhaps it was Damoduro. It will be for Lakowecki. And while Charlotte fans aren't going to like it, Morgan, I'm sure you can appreciate that sort of challenge because it completely stopped the counterattack. Cato was gone, and there was no help on the right side of the field.
And it's one of those professional fouls that Lakowecki had to do. Otherwise, he is going to get burned in a foot race, and the rest of this Tampa Bay back line is.
Herrera finding Cato. These two really on the same page now. Alex Martinez loves these 1v1 situations. Ekra looking for the return pass. Would have been a difficult ball. Cato trying to bend it in. Falls for Greg Jordan. In for Herrera. Oh, great idea from the Colombian. Broken up again by Makandawiri. And a corner kick coming up for Charlotte.
It's a cheeky little slip pass as well from Jordan coming in. Seeing Herrera making that run. It's a split ball in. Herrera looking to connect from that one, but he's so good, Jorge Herrera is, in little pockets, just taking a couple steps or opening up his run a little bit to create space. It's just little movements that make such a difference.
And the corner kick coming up, brought to you as always by Chick-fil-A. Herrera on top of it. That means an outswinger. First corner of the half for the Jacks. Herrera, good ball in, Lee Jung-soo. Well, just outstanding body control. Even to be able to get a header that is anywhere near the frame, and he was a few inches away from putting this one to bed for Charlotte.
Jung-soo just came out of nowhere and found space there. It's a really nice ball sent in, which allowed him to get a touch on it, but he beats two defenders to that near post. Looks to flick it to the far post, doesn't miss by much. That's so difficult. He got his shoulders turned, hits it on the run. That's what I love about defenders or center backs getting forward on set pieces. They're so hungry because they don't get forward that often, so they try to take advantage of those opportunities.
Sort of like a Ricardo Ferrigno for Las Vegas.
Yeah, but he's a goalkeeper. But yeah, same thing.
Joel Johnson out of the back. Jan Ekra in acres of space. Now over for Alex Martinez. Running right at the Tampa Bay back line. Martinez, not a bad idea, but never troubling Akira Fitzgerald in the end.
That's one of those moments when Martinez does find space, gets at the back line, but then cuts it centrally, which puts him right on his right peg, which isn't a bad look for him. A little far out, but I like that you see him trying different things because he has been closed down in the corner a few too many times. So we saw him pop the ball back and just look for something different.
Watson taken down. Well into the 82nd minute. Charlotte with 3 points move into a tie with the Pittsburgh Riverhounds for second place in the Eastern Conference. Tampa Bay Rowdies in danger of dropping their 6th game on the road. 2-5-0 away from Al Lang and coming off their first loss in St. Petersburg since April of 2017. Percussion, as always, here at Sportsplex at Matthews. Brought to you by the Jacks Militia. Good ball sent forward, wrist off, into the area. Johnson got a touch. Looked like it might have been a handball on Fernandez. Will play on. Fernandez bends it in. And Dykstra making sure. Gets a pull-up in. And a goal kick coming. And it looks like Ristov is down behind the play. But before that, it's going to be the Dane, Martin Vingard, coming on. 33-year-old from Odense, Denmark. Had an outstanding career with FC Copenhagen from 2009 to 2013. 97 appearances, including 16 goals, and he'll replace Michael Nanchoff here in the 84th. And Vingard has to be extremely happy with how the World Cup has gone as of late. Denmark moving on to the round of 16, along with France out of their group.
Entering the game, number 20, Martin Vingard. Exiting number 23, Michael Nanchoff.
Charlotte, even in the 84th, and up a goal, putting pressure on the Rowdies. And it looks like Mwape is getting ready to come on for Charlotte. Good step from Greg Jordan. Fresh legs proving to be valuable in the middle of the park for Mike Jeffries. Donnie Smith into the channel. How about that for a first touch from Herrera? Now it's Alex Martinez. It's actually going to be Bilal Duckett coming in. So a blatantly obvious defensive change for Jeffries.
Attention fans, if you'd like to meet the players, take a picture, or get an autograph, we ask that you please make your way to Autograph
Lakawecki.
Gallery, located on the south end of the field near the clubhouse. The players will make their way over shortly
Fernandez.
after the final whistle.
Trying to dump it in for Lakawecki.
Please do not climb over the railing and do not enter the field.
And the second substitution for Mike Jeffries going to take place now. Bilal Duckett, 29-year-old from Macon, Georgia, and former Notre Dame Irishman, coming on to replace Javon Watson. And Watson with a very strong game at the back for the Jacks. And it must be nice for Mike Jeffries to be able to bring on somebody who is a mainstay and starter for Charlotte in 2017, and virtually was the captain for the entire season, and have him come on here in the 86th and help them close this out and get 3 points.
And they have a tough task right now, honestly, because we've seen a different Tampa Bay squad. There's going to be at least 4 minutes of stoppage time when you take in Gorsky's injury into account. Charlotte already trying to waste time.
Johnson shown mustard for delaying the proceedings.
Which would be his 5th yellow. So
Good thing we didn't put money on Joel Johnson going 5 more games without a yellow.
But if you're Johnson, a player who's been in yellow card trouble before, that's such a bad way to get a 5th one. I totally get trying to waste time, but right now, knowing that there's still going to be a good amount of stoppage time, coming off a substitution when time has already gone off the clock, you have to just be a little bit smarter than that, because now he's put his team in a tough spot, knowing that that's his 5th yellow. He's going to have to sit out the next game.
And it will be the first game of the season in which Joel Johnson does not start. He was the only player for Charlotte starting playing all 16 games, including tonight. And it's the left back position where they have some depth. Right back wise, it does get a little bit dicey, although we were talking to Mike Jeffries and he said that Javon Watson would make a dynamite outside back on maybe another team, but given what they need right now, center back is the role that they need him in. As Cordell Cato taken down, but the ball will remain with Charlotte.
And if you think about some of the characteristics of a Javon Watson and you picture him as an outside back, a big guy, has a big stature, pacey, a great passer, is able to connect, has played in the central midfield role, so he has that central midfielder vision. Totally see why he would make a great outside back, but right now he's such a key part of this team and really needs to be in the spine of the lineup, somewhere in that middle of the park.
Well, Amon Zaid is going to be the 3rd and final substitution for Mike Jeffries. Jan Ecker will come off, Zaid on. That's going to do it for subs. This is the 22 we're going to roll with until the final whistle. What the final score will be, we have to wait and find out. Fernandez. Dropped to the deck by Fernandez. That's going to be his 2nd yellow. So moments after getting a yellow for time wasting, receives his 2nd. After giving a forearm shiver to Leo Fernandez. And he'll miss the next game regardless.
That's definitely a yellow card. It hurts even worse for Charlotte knowing that that's Johnson's second. He's coming in really fast to go to the tackle, doesn't dive in, but stops his body and puts his arms out. If he can realize that he's not going to get a touch into that tackle, rather than bringing down the player, just drop off. Maybe go into the space where the player is going to take his touch. But right there, Johnson is probably thinking, he knows if he does that, it's going to be called. And if he doesn't have that other yellow, it's fine. Maybe, okay, that's a reason to get your 5th yellow. But then to add that onto the time wasting, that's a tough one for Charlotte, tough one to swallow.
And now they're behind the 8 ball a little bit, although up a goal. This one sent in. Great effort! Tampa Bay equalize in the 90th. It's Damo Duro in his Rowdy debut with a banger at the Sportsplex at Matthews. 2-2.
The way that this ball was laid out, the way that it dropped right to Oduro, you looked at that and knew that he was going to take advantage. What a strike in his debut, had acres of space, didn't need to take a touch. It was laid perfectly for him, and he ran through that. That is Tampa Bay taking advantage of Charlotte, their poor decision.
The 23-year-old from Ghana, Right to Dream Academy product, as well as Manchester City Youth. Signed a week ago to the day. Had an unbelievable run with FC Golden State in the PDL, taking down Orange County and Las Vegas Lights FC in the 2nd and 3rd rounds. Signed by Neal Collins in the Rowdies and making a major impact on the road. Charlotte down a man, putting themselves in a tough position. Bilal Duckett somehow gets the pass over to Donnie Smith. Is there a game winner in store? Smith taken down, and it will be a set piece for Charlotte. Herrera couldn't play it, he was offside.
When that cross came in from Tampa Bay, and it wasn't a clear clearance, it was more of a deflection, anytime that ball pops into the middle of the park, right around the top of the box, especially when it doesn't have a lot of pace on it, defensively, that's when you just take a huge gasp and pray that the attacker mishits it, because that is laid perfectly. Any player, defender, midfielder, forward, is going to take advantage of that and run through it, especially at this level.
Now it's Charlotte to answer. Well, plenty of pushing and shoving going on between, it looked like Lakawecki and Donnie Smith. Calls from Charlotte that it was a flop. Calls from Tampa Bay that Donnie Smith was out of line. And Donnie Smith has been sent off. It's a straight red. And now Charlotte are down 2 men, and we still have a decent amount of stoppage time left. What looked like a game that Charlotte had in complete control after going up 2-0. Tam McConaughey answers. Joel Johnson gets 2 yellow cards in the blink of an eye. Tampa Bay equalized within moments, and now Tampa Bay with a 2-man advantage. Donnie Smith sent off for a straight red. Lakawecki making sure he still has all of his teeth. And the set piece still to come for Charlotte.
Donnie Smith got caught in a very poor decision. He was frustrated. He was knocked down earlier when they were making their runs into the box. That's just his way of retaliating. Looks like he made contact with Lakawecki. This game has been off the rails since 2 red cards in the come on. It comes down to decision making. You have to stay composed.
Well, it's still the Independents with a chance here. Herrera nodded away, and the foul is going to go against Charlotte. It was Bilal Duckett, a little bit overzealous, and he's in a full sprint back, and quite honestly, I don't blame him. Charlotte just down to 9 players now, trying to hold on for dear life of what would be a collapse of epic proportions. Tampa looking to score 3 unanswered goals and come away with 3 points. They've equalized thanks to this man, Damo Duro. Now he gets it over for Lakawecki. Gorsky. Lee Jung-soo handles it. Ayman Zaid gets it over for Alex Martinez.
I think we can agree that the first 57 minutes and then the last 33 plus have been two completely different games. For Tampa Bay, this is a game that they walk away from and want to forget the beginning, but when you look at the response from this team on the road, has struggled dealing with so much going on in the team.
Here's Alex Morel on the move. Oduro over for Gorsky. Hunter Gorsky delivers quality service, knotted away by Greg Jordan, and cleared out of danger by Ayman Zaid. Into the 95th minute. Gorsky. Do Tampa Bay have one more left? Lakowecki driven towards the back post. Lee Jung-soo elevates. Gorsky up for the header. And it's a foul against Gorsky. And it just goes to show his competitive nature after already getting rocked in the dome once tonight and having a huge gash on his head. No regard for human life heading into that challenge. Alex Martinez, the unfortunate beneficiary.
Tyler, when you look at games that Charlotte should have had more than 1 point, another tie for them, this one is circled, highlighted. This is that game. They should have come away with 3. They didn't stay composed. Their decisions caught up to them. But for Tampa Bay, well done to them coming back and getting a point on the road.
That's going to do it. Full time at the Sportsplex in Matthews. A wild second half after one of the more boring first 45 minutes you'll see in the United Soccer League. 4 goals split right down the middle, 2 red cards, 2 in-your-face finishes from both Herrera and Cordell Cato, and a world-class goal from Damo Duro equalize in the 90th minute, moments after Joel Johnson got sent off. Tampa Bay Rowdies get their first draw of the season on the road away from Al Lang Stadium. They bounce back after a difficult loss against Penn FC at home, and the Charlotte Independents drop points at home, and this is the Wells Fargo save of the game. Really not much in it, Morgan, but for Andrew Dykstra, he didn't see a lot in the first half, if any, and then in the second half, all that was put on goal were really that shot and the 2 ones that went in.
And the one from Makandawiri, he's dealing with players injured. It keeps going on, not able to react, and then he couldn't have done anything about the goal from Oduro. No shot whatsoever of getting a touch on that one. So like you said, not too many chances that Dykstra had to deal with, but when he was called on the simple ones, obviously he stepped up.
Well, Jorge Herrera and company will have to settle for a point. Tampa Bay Rowdies certainly feel like they stole one here at the Sportsplex at Matthews. We'll step away for a moment, but when we come back post-game, don't go anywhere.
My card.
Misplace your debit card? Turn it off with your app.
Excuse me, my card.
This one's gotta be yours, right?
Yes.
And turn it on when you find it.
Well, a game that was delayed by a half an hour for weather proved to be well worth the wait. Charlotte and Tampa Bay played to a 2-2 draw, 4 goals split right down the middle. But for the Charlotte Independents, it's another disappointing draw. They're 4th in a row. They're winless in their last 5. However, they're unbeaten in their last 4. Jorge Herrera, Cordell Cato with the tallies for Charlotte, Tam Makandawiri, and Dominic Oduro in his Rowdy debut for Neal Collins. And that is how we finished here in the greater Charlotte area. Tyler Terrence along with former Virginia Tech Hokie Morgan Conklin, and we'll take a look at the full-time highlights. And as our producer Ryan Rose so obviously told us, they're all going to be from the second half because nothing happened in the first. And this is how we got started. 57th minute, great ball from Cato, Herrera the finisher.
And a great run from Cato that set that whole thing up, took it upon himself, went 1v1. That's his strength. He finds the space in behind Lakawecki. It's a great ball sent across to Jorge Herrera, who of course is going to be there because that's what he does best. He moves off the ball and finds the space.
Now we head to the 64th minute. Now it's Herrera over for Cato. And how about this, Morgan? No angle, no problem. No chance for Akira Fitzgerald. It made it 2-0.
Man, if we had an 18-yard box camera to see this, the way that Cato hits that, Herrera, though, credit to him for finding the ball and then hitting it across to Cato.
And then just 2 minutes later, Tam Makandawiri. It looked like it might have been a handball. The referee says play on, and Makandawiri takes advantage of that fact. Gorsky and Watson, or excuse me, George would collide. Both would return, and this would cut the deficit in half.
And Tampa Bay is just able to respond off a broken play. It's hit back, there's a collision, potential handball, but Tam Makandawiri just ready for it, is able to respond. Wants that ball, he's hungry in the box. Tampa Bay, what a great response from them.
And then just moments after Joel Johnson received his second yellow, Dom Oduro, thank you very much. An absolute laser beam. Dykstra ends up getting a touch to it, but the pace, the power, and the authority of the shot, too much to handle.
Unbelievable finish, and it had a little tiny bounce, so it's almost like a bit of a volley. It was laid perfectly for him, or he can just strike through that one. You know that one felt good when it came off the foot.
Absolutely, and here are the full-time stats. I mean, finally some shots on target and some shots to be had. There were zeros across the board at the end of the first 45 minutes. It's astounding that we're looking at this final statistic graphic after the first half that we had.
I feel like we almost can't talk about the first half anymore because all of this was so big and happened in the second half. But a great performance from Tampa Bay, being able to come back. Charlotte, things just started to fall apart. Decisions, poor choices in terms of 2 yellows, a red card from Donnie Smith on the other end. So for Charlotte, it's a tough one. Things just started to crumble for them. They couldn't finish out the full 90. But Tampa Bay able to crawl back in this. And for a team that I said a couple times are looking for their identity, this is a great game to build off of because they were able to put the poor first half behind them, crawl back in, score some great goals, and it's a good win for them on the road.
Well, Charlotte moved to 6-4-6 on the season. They had an opportunity to move into a tie for second with Bob Lilly's Pittsburgh Riverhounds, but they're going to have to settle for the point. As for the Tampa Bay Rowdies, they moved to 5-6-4. A hard-earned point on the road, to say the least. For Charlotte, their next match is going to be against the Bethlehem Steel on Saturday, albeit without the services of Joel Johnson and Donnie Smith. So the outside back position is going to have to be sorted out for Mike Jeffries before the weekend. And for the Tampa Bay Rowdies, they have the weekend off, and they'll have an opportunity to lick their wounds and maybe work on some things on the training ground. But what a night of football it was at the Sportsplex at Matthews. First 45 minutes, as Morgan said, we won't talk about it, but the second half here at the Sportsplex at Matthews will be talked about for a long time. 4 goals in 45 minutes. Herrera, Cato, Makandawiri, and Dom Oduro, the goal scorers. A point to be had for both teams. For our entire crew and my broadcast partner, Morgan Conklin, I'm Tyler Terrence saying so long for now. Final score, Charlotte 2, Tampa Bay 2. We'll talk to you soon.
This copyrighted telecast of the United Soccer League may not be retransmitted, rebroadcast, or reproduced without the express written consent of the United Soccer League.